Hey guys, it's Frederik from the FWX podcast. I want to talk about you guys. I want to talk with you guys about some more storytelling and writing terminology, specifically one very important phrase, and that is show, don't tell. And this is a very important phrase that we're going to talk about. But first, before we start, I'd like to inform you that you can like this video. You can also subscribe to the channel. That helps the videos and the podcast to become more available to people, and that way more people can actually watch these episodes of the FWX podcast. You can also uh, share this with friends and family, or your coworkers, or maybe just here online. You can also comment away in the comment section as well, and do keep it polite and friendly. And one last thing before we start, I'm not a native English speaker, so if I get something wrong, that is perfectly normal. That happens sometimes, and if it happens, know that that is perfectly normal to do. Alright, let's start talking about show, don't tell. And I'm gonna make myself a bit smaller for this so you can follow me here. Okay, so show, don't tell, as you can see in this Wikipedia page and on this overview from Google, is a writing technique that we use to give you the information that you need in the story so that you can know what it is about. And specifically, it is, as the sentence says, you need to show it and not tell it. Although on occasion you can also do some interesting things with tell as well, and I will talk about that in a moment. But first, the show part is really about different ways that you can use it. And this makes it easier for people to understand what it is that it's about. You could have someone talking to somebody else in uh, in a conversation with witty dialogue, but you can also have, for instance, like a literal scene, like showing what exactly is happening. For instance, the overview gives you the sentence, Michael was afraid of the dark. And you could, on one occasion, tell it like that. Michael was afraid of the dark, but you're not really adding something to that moment, but more actually showing it. Like, for instance, in a movie, in a scene for a movie, you could have this sentence, Michael was afraid of the dark, just literally be shown. Like a boy or a man gripping the sheets, gripping himself in a fetal position, and you get to see what is happening exactly. That's the show part. And that helps you build the believability of the story that you're watching. Again, we're talking about a audio-visual medium here. Although it does also work for books, but then you're actually telling it. But then that way you need to describe what is happening. And it can go about with the use of shadows and light, which again can also be used in an audio-visual way when you have a camera in at certain angles showing you the colors of what is happening, the black, the white, and everything else. And one of those other things, like I just explained, is to use sensory details. For instance, describing what is happening. And in writing in a writing format, you need to actually say what that is. For instance, so the overview is saying how to describe a pile of dirty clothes on the floor. So you need to actually describe what it is, like a pair of jeans, a shirt, a hat, and maybe not just like that, but like go into a little bit more detail, like what color are they? What kind of fabric is it? What size might it be? And that is one of those ways that you can actually tell the story in right enough detail on what it is about. And that's one of those ways to do it. Of course, with when you're doing it that way, when you're describing things, you need to go not too deeply into the details because then you trip on that very thing of telling stuff. For instance, let's take a hat. It was a red hat, it had a print on it, and it's about as much information, as much details as you can give. But then you can use this at the same time also telling, because oftentimes clothes, wardrobe tells a lot about the person itself that uses those clothes, that clothes themselves with it. You can actually engage with the moment by actually describing what things are, which gives you an idea of who the person is. And it could tell you what they do, it could tell you what they like, it could tell you what their hobbies are, it could also tell you about their personality. Like, are they maybe a bit more rudimentary clothed, or maybe they clothe themselves to excess? Maybe you could say the jeans laid on the floor with a chain, which gives you the idea of maybe this is an emo person, maybe this is a punk rock person, and that can tell a lot about the person in the bed. You can go deeper into those kinds of things. That was my phone. You can. So let's go deeper on that scene for a moment. So Michael was afraid of the dark. You can describe how they feel, for instance. Don't just say, oh, she was nervous or he was nervous when it comes to Michael. You literally describe what he was feeling. His palms were sweaty. His heart was pounding against his ribs. Again, this is exactly from the overview. Another one it could be that they were trying to make a ball of themselves, like the feral position, where we crawl and make ourselves so small because we feel alone. And you could say, like that feral position, for instance, that they were keeping their arms close to their chest. They were holding their legs against themselves. They had their head tucked in. That's the way how you do show and tell. Describe, depending on the sensory details, you could go for the background of things. You can talk about what the person is wearing, which tells a lot about personality, for instance, because wardrobe is that huge of a thing, actually. You can also have them sometimes for show and tell, show, don't tell, or actually, I like to interject with that for a moment because the sentence is show, don't tell. We could also do show and tell, and like I said at the very start, that is how you can actually write a scene. Um, well, write any medium where you show it on your scenes, whether it's books or a movie or a TV series. You'll start from the writing part, of course. So a screenwriter will also write stuff for a TV series, which they need to be minute in. They go for the details, the descriptions, the feelings of the people, the backgrounds, and all of that. And that's how you can use that. I also want to add something I have found myself that I think is very important and could be interesting to use. For instance, usually we don't tell that much, but there's a way that you can actually use the tell part of show don't tell that is important to build someone up, to gain tension, and that is through dialogue, through people mentioning somebody else. And there's one place that they do that very well. And the example I'm going to give you is with this guy, as you can see on the screen. I'm going to select a picture here of our guy. I'm going to pick a different picture here for a moment. So this is a picture of Thanos, of course, played in the MCU by Josh Brolin. And one of the things that I love about this specific character is how he is built up through the tell part, which is you have multiple characters talk about him throughout the length of whatever project you're working on, a movie, books, whatever. But especially with the MCU, what they did is they introduced him as the main villain of the first couple of phases, and they did this by building him up through conversation, through dialogue with all the other characters, so that at the end, when we first get him introduced, not in this comic book version, of course, but close to it, we actually get like the imposing figure of him, so that everything seems way more impressive. And that is how you can do the tell parts. You can build somebody up. You can make the anticipation and the tension get to the point of, oh yeah, this is who we're dealing with. And that's what I wanted to add to that specific part. And so we're back here. Just a second. Hold up a second. Yeah, here we are. So that is how you can use show, don't tell, and show and tell. And there's one more thing I want to add here for a moment. Sometimes what they often do, especially with movies and television series, is flashbacks. And that happens in way too many media that for me to go through right now. But basically, um, or for instance, I'll mention this. Oftentimes, when a character is close to death, they have that lives flashing before your life. I'm gonna rephrase that for a moment. Lives flashing before your eyes moments where you literally get to see what happened back in your life. That is also another way to do it. Like building up a character, or we get to a point where the character is about to go through some serious tension or conflict, and you have those flashbacks go through your life from the time you were a baby to the point at where the conflict is happening, and that is yet another one of those ways that to actually do those things. So, okay. I hope you had, I hope this was educational for you. Thank you so much for listening and watching to this episode of the FWX podcast. Before I go, I'd like to inform you one last time that you can like this video. You can also subscribe to the channel, which helps these videos and the podcast to become more available to many more people if they want to watch it. And you can also share this with friends and family, and you can also co-workers and or just people here online. And you can also comment away in the comment section if you want to do that, but do keep it polite and friendly. And that is has been it for me for right now. So thank you so much for listening and watching to this episode of the FWX podcast, and I will see you in the next episode. See ya.